Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you the techniques I learned as a beginner to replace the PS5 analog joysticks with halo effect joysticks. The halo effect joysticks are much less prone to joystick drift. So I'll pop the link below to the joysticks I'm using, but in general, the GullyKit brand has worked great for me. I know this works because I've already done this for two of my controllers. And I also know that these techniques work because I've also destroyed a couple of boards, using the wrong soldering techniques or the wrong equipment. To begin, let's diagnose the extent of the problem. Plug your PS5 controller into your computer and go to hardwaretester.com. Usually just a cleaning of the dust and the muck in the potentiometer can be a short-term solution, but this is a solution for those who want a longer joystick life, drift-free. This controller I bought secondhand for cheap because, as you can see, it has clear issues with the joystick, which I think is just the joystick cap that came loose underneath, but we're going to continue with the full conversion anyway. Once you're on hardwaretester.com, you plug in that controller, you test circularity, and as you can see here, the joystick on the right actually is perfect. It's dead center, no drift, but this one on the left, absolutely destroyed. As I said, I think that it's just the joystick cap that's come loose, and it could be an easy fix, but we'll do the conversion anyway. Now that we know for certain that it's the left joystick that is the issue, clearly, we're going to move over to the workshop and begin to take this apart. This is the list of tools you're going to need to make this installation. So now that we're at the workshop, we're going to start to take this apart so we can get to the guts. Here you're going to need a spudger, and you'll want to take off this front plate. See that? Easily comes off. There we go. Usually this just pops off. Underneath here, and it just pops off. Don't worry, you won't break it. Then you need a screwdriver, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what you're going to need to do is use the spudger across the edge. There we go. See, it just comes off like that. What you're going to want to do is you take this battery out, but you want to carefully pull out that plug, putting that aside, and then you use your screwdriver again. Before you do that, you want to take out the microphone here. I'm going to go for this and this. You can just put these aside. Then you need to go for this and this. Actually, it's easy if you just pop this out. The next thing we need to do now is actually desolder these 4 points. Now remember, black is on top, red at the bottom, 1, 2. In BDM 010s and 020, you will usually have these 2 cables. Now this is where my beginner engineer skills come in, where I use a desolder pump even for my soldering and desoldering, because it just seems to be much easier for me than actually using just a normal solder, because I can never get this tip to actually do what is needed. That just never works for me. What we're going to do now is we're going to use the desoldering pump to remove the joystick cables. Now this might look a little bit different because my camera actually cut out when I did this whole process, so I had to go back and do it again, and that is why it's covered in soldering paste already. That's actually quite easy to remove. Now that we've removed this, you see that it was really just the joystick that was the joystick cap that was loose, but sometimes the microphone might still be attached to the card, or it could still be in here. That's fine. You can really just leave this in here and you put it aside. And what we're left with is the board. Grab some pincers, and what I like to do is I put some foil on it, just so that's a little bit protected. Get yourself some heat tape, because that you're going to use to cover all of these plastic bits, because I have ruined boards previously while using this without this heat tape, and honestly it just ruins the entire controller. Look at that. Now it's all covered and protected. And what you're going to want is some soldering flux paste, and you're going to put some of this over here. And then what you're going to want is some thin lead, because the standard solder that's on here is really difficult to melt. So we want to add some of this that mixes in with it. So when we actually want to remove this, it's going to be a lot easier. There we go. I'll pop a link below or the soldering pump, because honestly, it really made a difference for me. This next part is quite important because just of the approach that I take when I'm removing these joysticks. What you want to start with is actually getting right into here with a tweezer or something, and you just gently pull it. Hold it with both hands. Get in there. Don't pull it. Just pry it away. And the reason why I do this is because even though I'm about to use a hot air solder, it is actually quite difficult to get everything removed at once. So I prefer to start with the potentiometer first, and then the structural part of the joystick. You don't have to rip it off, because what you really don't want to do is remove the contact points on the actual board, because that is again how I have previously destroyed other controllers. Take your pliers or a tweezer and you just start with the... I've currently got this at 500 degrees, and honestly, just because when you're using these cheaper Amazon ones, it's quite difficult to remove with evenly distributed heat. Apologies for the terrible video skills here. It's quite difficult to do all of this while recording. I promise I'll do better in the next video. There we go. As you can see, all three have come out quite smoothly. Let's move to the easier side now. I didn't speed this up at all because I wanted to show how long it actually takes to get the right heat, so that you can gently pull this out. You really do not, again, you don't want to pull this too hard. Make sure that there is movement, that it's easy, and then it will just slide right out. There we go. Be careful, this is very hot. See? There we go. Let's come off. Just take the structural pieces off here. What we're gonna do now is the non-professional method. We're going to use these bad boys. Be careful of your eyes when you're doing this. And you want to cut laterally, so across, and do not pull. Don't pull, because you don't want to pull these contacts out. what we've got now is a fully removed joystick. I mean card. But here's the kicker. We need to now put the joystick into these holes. So we need to clean out the extra solder that's in some of these. What we want to do is no flashing on the battery, that's good. And then you want to take the actual joysticks . That's good. Now that we have the joystick in here, but not soldered on, we want to actually test that there is a connection with the board. So what you want to do again is plug in the USB cable into the board, and there you're seeing the light. And what you're seeing once you've plugged that in is that yes, the left controller is moving. Okay. The right one is being detected, but I don't see any movement. But at least it is. So you are seeing the button click. I think that should be fine. That's good. Now we can take that out. And what you can also do is take out the battery again. Now that we know the joystick is working, we're going to use our solder. Let's flux this up. You want to make sure that this is solidly in here. And then we do the structural elements. Now that that is done, what you want to do is plug in the battery. Still no light, that's great. And then you plug this in. And with this, you do see some jitter. Not good. And I think that's actually an issue of my soldering. But overall, the joystick itself is working great. Now you want to calibrate these. What you want to go to is DualShockTools.github.io and understood. Now you want to go to connect. Your controller is connected. You go connect, and this is your controller. As you can see, it's a little bit off. Calibrate stick center. Press start to get a calibration. Top left corner. Top right corner. Bottom left corner. Bottom right corner. Done. Now you can see completely dead center. Calibrate the stick range. We want to check the circularity. So now that that's done, you want to take your battery out again, just to be careful. And what we can do is then take the caps out of here. We pop these on top. Get that in there nicely. What you want to do is bring this back. Now, remember, black on top, red on bottom. And now you're done with the soldering. One thing we didn't do, I want to put these plastic pieces back on. Don't forget to put that back in. This way, with the ribbon cable. Put these back, but you know what? I'll give us a little clean first. So, just close this up. Now that the controller is done, what we want to do is plug that back in. Now, as you can see, they are actually dead center. Now, one issue I have understood is that the circularity is not perfect. Limitation of movement, but it works perfectly in games. And as you can see, it also snaps right back to center. So that calibration works. There's none of that jitter we were seeing, and that was really just because the joysticks were exposed. All the buttons work,